Hello and welcome to Quays News. I'm Liam Casey.
And I'm Lika Priliani. Coming up on today's show. After the vote last night, again the Prime Minister deal, we find out what is the next for the Great Britain.
It's okay, Brexit, for the strong, but it's not okay for the weak.
We speak to Mark Burton from Steady State Manchester regarding the issues of lack of affordable houses in Greater Manchester.
We celebrate Manchester being a cultural city as our reporter attended the St. Patrick's Day and the Indonesian Festival on the same day.
Our top story today is Brexit. Members of Parliament have rejected Theresa May's third Brexit proposal. This leaves the UK without a definitive exit strategy, with just 3 weeks until we leave.
One is that they apply for an extension, but we're told that if they get an extension, they have to provide grounds to the European Union that something new will be negotiated during that period. Or they could call a new general election. That's a possibility. And the third possibility is that we can have a second referendum.
We're joined in our studio with our political correspondent, Rafael Pereira. Hi, Rafael. So, what is the current situation?
Well, the current situation, as we all know, is that the Parliament yesterday denied the May Brexit deal. So today, this afternoon, we are about to, in the Parliament, to hold a second vote in a no-deal scenario, which is the most likely to delay that option as well. And so tomorrow, they should vote for whether to extend the transition period.
So, you talk about extending Article 50 until Parliament can agree on a solid exit strategy, but how will that work? Will the EU accept an extension? Yeah.
That's really likely because the Chancellor Angela Merkel from Germany already said that there's any problem, any issue extending the Article 50 and extending the transition period for Britain, so it's not going to be any problem at all.
Excellent. It's been 3 years now since the referendum and we still don't have a concrete plan. With 3 weeks to go, should we be worried?
Yeah. I think we should really be worried about this situation because it's nothing. Every single day happens a different situation, and Britain doesn't have any idea of what's going to happen on the next day. So it's really uncertain and unprecedented in this country because I know that British people like to have all the plans already set up, so yeah. It's like an unprecedented situation.
Right. So what options do we have now then?
So the options on the table are that the most likely, in my opinion, is that the government hold a second referendum, and now I think the people has more information than the first referendum, because now the people has more information to all the options that are on the table and the complexity of this process. And also the EU wants, as we all know, to make it harder for other countries that if they are considering to leave in the EU, it's going to be really difficult.
All right, thank you very much, Rafa.
Thank you.
We now move to find out what members of the public think about Brexit.
I think we thrive when we're connected with other people, and when we try to isolate ourselves as a small island nation, we're actually worse off. You know, I think we thrive with richness and diversity of people from all over the world.
People are not interested because when they voted out, they thought they was opening the door to get out. They didn't know it was going to be fast forward to where we are now, still discussing it. It's a messy divorce. It's a messy divorce. That's what it is.
The City of Manchester celebrated St Patrick's Day a week early with a parade through the streets. There are festivals happening all week up until St Patrick's Day on Sunday the 17th of March.
As well as this, last Sunday also saw Manchester celebrated Indonesian culture where there was dancing, performance and an Indonesian food to try. Our reporter Kelwin reports.
Manchester is one of major international cities in Britain. It is colored by multicultural events and festivals. And now I'm right here at Salford Square with the people here. We are waiting for the St. Patrick's Parade.
The St. Patrick's Parade was happening on Sunday the 10th of March. This annual event attracted nearly 600 attendants, although the weather was so harsh due to rain, snow and wind.
Yeah, I have. I've been coming since I was a kid because my granddad does one of the stalls. So yeah, I've been in the parade before.
The parade started from the Irish World Heritage Centre at noon and arrived on Salford Square around 1 p.m.
Irish community all getting together as one. We've been doing it for years upon years, you know. My body's in England, but my heart's in Ireland.
And now I'm here in University of Manchester for Indonesian Festival!
This event to happen annually, it's like a reunion for us all, and it's really important to keep reminding us of our own culture so that we don't forget of our home.
And every year, like the people coming have been growing and growing, and this year we're hoping for 800 plus people.
The event was conducted under the cooperation of the Indonesian Student Society in Greater Manchester and the Indonesian Student Society of Greater Liverpool. Attendants had a chance to experience Indonesian culture, including traditional games and music. And this is Kelwin from Quays News.
The lack of affordable homes in social housing and low-rent properties in Salford are preventing people from getting onto the property ladder and finding homes they can afford.
We are joined in the studio Mark Burton from Steady Set Manchester. Hi Mark, how can we balance the need of new house with the claim of green belt?
I think we have to start from the assumptions that we're making about how many homes are needed and about the priority of green belt. Also about the phasing. So it doesn't actually look like there really should be any conflict. Certainly back in September, it looked like on the basis of the latest housing figures that it would be possible for Greater Manchester to accommodate all the housing need without encroaching on the green belt. But then, as I think you know, the government imposed the use of outdated population figures for the calculation of the housing need, which I know Andy Burnham has complained about, so that we're using the wrong assumptions to plan. Also, we're planning for 20 years, whereas if we plan for 15 years, there's enough land available for the housing need. So it all comes down to the assumptions that we're making.
So what do you think the projections from the Greater Manchester Council about the spatial framework are too optimistic?
They're highly flawed. They're flawed, as I've already just explained, in terms of the population projections and the number of households that are going to form over the period. But they're also flawed in terms of the levels of economic growth that's promoted. So the Greater Manchester Combined Authority are using a firm called Oxford Economics, who are projecting outlandish levels of economic growth, well above, for example, the Office for Budgetary Responsibility projections and the mainstream of economic forecasters. That means that they're over-projecting on employment, they're over-projecting on population because of the people coming to Greater Manchester. And they're trying to plan for 20 years. Even Stalin, didn't try and plan for a 20-year period. There's too many uncertainties. So really they need to be thinking in terms of planning indefinite for 5 years and then with indicative plans for the next 5 and the 5 after that. 20 years is too long. You can't make sense of it.
So, in your opinion, what do you think about the projections for housing in Salford?
I think it's good that Salford will be taking rather more houses and flats than, for example, the outlying districts, and that does give some protection to green space, because Salford has a lot of, if you like, post-industrial landscape that can now be used for other purposes. So that's good. The ratio is going to be something like 4.5 flats to houses, which is a high ratio. And indeed, across Greater Manchester, we're looking at a kind of level.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you there, but we've run out of time. I do apologise.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
Pleasure
you for
to be
coming.
here.
Cheers.
Still to come, a demonstration will take place this Friday against climate change.
We also have the weather to report. We want to see your pictures of Storm Gareth by tweeting us at Quays News or use the hashtag QuaysNewsTV.
There will be another climate change protest scheduled to take place this Friday, 15th of March, throughout the UK.
This comes after the strike last month where school children walked out of their lessons due to demonstrate global warming. Our environmental correspondent, Julian Villanueva, reports.
Last month, St. Peter's Square was full of kids in protest for climate change. This Friday will happen again, and this place is going to be full of children giving a lesson to the adults.
Really empowering for the young people involved. It was the first time that many of them had been involved in any form of protest, and so it was giving them a voice and giving them the ability to speak out about what they're worrying about, so the climate, the environment, not being listened to by grown-ups.
Some people from the government are against it, as Theresa May. Others, instead, as Jeremy Corbyn or Nicola Sturgeon from Scotland, are agree. The protest will be in the same place where 200 years ago was the most important protest in Greater Manchester. This reflects how the people support this movement.
Grown-ups suggest that they should protest in the afternoon, but this is not the point of a strike, do you know what I mean? And in general, we should encourage young people to participate in politics and to show interest and to raise their voices, definitely.
I think it's a really good idea personally, because obviously being from a younger generation myself, I think that it's like really important for young people to get involved in something that's potentially going to affect our futures. And I know it sounds so cliche, but we are the future, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's very important to educate the children, let them know about this and make it a concern for them, so they should leave class, yeah.
Hopefully, I think the last one was about 15,000 people across the country, which is I think it's a pretty decent amount, it's a pretty strong amount. I think it might have an impact because it does cause a disruption, and it's something that, because the government are so focused on education and they clearly were really bothered by it when it happened the first time, I think if it keeps happening, it will keep bothering them and maybe something will happen.
Around 600 people gathered here in St. Peter's Square. For the day after tomorrow, on Friday, is expected the same number, more or less. The protest will be in 60 different countries and 40 only here in the UK. The politicians will understand that climate change is a real crisis.
So, Bryony, what's the weather looking like this week?
Good afternoon. It's been a wet and windy start to the week, following on from Storm Freya, who brought us 80-mile-an-hour winds and heavy snow in areas across the UK. The beginning of this week has been quiet, but we have seen strong northwesterly winds pushing into the northwest from the Atlantic. Today we are seeing clouds and sun with spotty showers and a high temperature of 9 degrees Celsius with a low of 6. Tonight we can expect a couple more of those spotty showers and more wind as the low pressure stays in charge. Tomorrow is going to be mostly cloudy with heavy periods of rain. The same goes for the weekend, unfortunately, with the sun not making an appearance until Monday. Get your brollies out, wrap up warm, as it's going to feel colder with those winds. Enjoy the rest of the week. Goodbye.
On
the auto cue.
Well, that's all from us. We're going to have to say goodbye. I've been Liam Casey.
And Lika, goodbye.